The night I met Sarah was like a scene straight out of a movie. A friend's party, the kind you expect to just float through, but there she was, laughing at something in the corner, her eyes catching mine across the room. Instantly, I knew I had to talk to her. The connection was electric, undeniable, and by the end of the night, we were inseparable. Months flew by, each day with Sarah better than the last. It wasn't long before we took the leap to move in together, our lives and hearts entwined in a cozy apartment that quickly felt like home. I'd never been more sure of anything when I asked her to marry me on our second anniversary. Her yes, through tears of joy, was the best moment of my life. Planning our wedding became our shared project, a testament to our love. We dove into every detail with passion, wanting the day to be a reflection of us. Our families and friends, some who traveled great distances, filled the venue with warmth and excitement. It was our dream come to life. The ceremony itself was a blur of emotion, laughter, tears, and vows spoken from the depths of our hearts. It felt like we were the only two people in the world, promising forever to each other. But at the reception, something changed. Sarah seemed distant, her vibrant energy dimmed. I tried to brush it off as wedding day stress, telling myself she just needed a moment. Yet, as I watched her from across the room, interacting with our guests yet not quite present, a nagging feeling took hold in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't shake the sense that something was amiss, but little did I know, the night was about to take a turn that would change everything. The wedding reception was in full swing, laughter and music filling the air, yet I found myself momentarily alone at our table. That's when I noticed Sarah's phone, abandoned beside her bouquet, vibrating with a relentless string of notifications. A flicker of curiosity overcame me as I reached for it, rationalizing that it might be something urgent. Unlocking her phone. The code hadn't changed since the day we decided to share everything. I was greeted by a barrage of messages from a number not saved in her contacts. The preview snippets were enough to send a jolt of shock through me. Hesitantly, I opened the message thread, and my worst fears materialized on the screen before me. Messages, pictures, plans made and kept secret, all painting a vivid picture of betrayal with someone named Alex, dating back months before our wedding. The room spun as I tried to process what I was seeing. This had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew it was not. With the phone still in hand, I looked up to find Sarah, her eyes meeting mine across the room. The joy that had lit her face all day vanished as she read the devastation in my expression. She rushed over, her approach hesitant, eyes welling with tears. "Please, let me explain," she pleaded, reaching for her phone. But there was no explanation needed, the evidence was clear and undeniable. Confronted with her texts, Sarah's facade crumbled. She confessed, her voice a whisper drowned out by the celebratory noise around us. Her affair with Alex, a coworker, began as a fling, she said, but it didn't end as promised. The words cut deeper with every confession, each syllable a hammer to my heart. The reception, once a blur of happiness, turned into a spectacle of our unraveling. Whispers spread like wildfire among our guests, their gazes flitting between us, laden with pity and disbelief. Sarah, in between sobs, tried to grasp at the fragments of our day, but it was too late. The damage was irrevocable. I couldn't stay, not with the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I left the reception alone, the echo of our vows taunting me with each step. The cool night air did nothing to soothe the burn of heartbreak and betrayal as I walked away from the celebration, from our guests, from Sarah. The woman I loved, the woman who had just shattered everything. The morning after the reception felt like waking up to a nightmare, the events of the previous night replaying in my mind with a clarity I wished I could blur. My phone buzzed incessantly on the nightstand, a constant reminder of the reality I was now forced to confront. It was Sarah, her texts a mixture of apologies and pleas for a chance to explain. But what was there to explain? The betrayal was clear, the pain, all too real. I couldn't bring myself to face her, to hear her voice. So, I remained silent. As the news of our shattered vows spread, friends and family began to weigh in. Calls and messages came in waves, each one filled with concern, offering advice, mediation, anything to mend what had been broken. But trust, once shattered, couldn't be easily pieced back together. Their well-intentioned efforts felt like salt in an open wound, and I retreated further into my shell, seeking refuge in solitude. The decision to move out of our shared home was both painful and necessary. Each room, each piece of furniture, held memories of a life I thought we were building together. Packing my belongings was like sifting through the debris of our shattered dreams. I left behind a silence that echoed with the ghosts of our past, stepping out into a future uncertain and alone. Sarah's attempts to reach me didn't stop. Letters arrived, filled with apologies, confessions, and promises of change. They piled up, unopened, a physical manifestation of her guilt. But forgiveness wasn't something I could offer, not yet. Each letter, each message, was a reminder of the chasm between us, one that words alone couldn't bridge. Then, one day, Sarah took her apologies public. She showed up at my workplace, unannounced, her presence a sudden storm disrupting the calm. Her voice, laced with desperation, carried across the open space, her words aiming for reconciliation but landing as spectacle. Colleagues and strangers bore witness to our private pain, turning a personal heartbreak into public drama. I stood there, frozen, as Sarah's apology washed over me, her tears for everyone to see. But the spectacle only served to deepen the divide, her actions driving home the realization that some scars were too deep, the damage too extensive. And as she was gently escorted away, the finality of our situation settled in. There was no going back, only forward, into a future I had never envisioned, one I would have to navigate without her. The moment Sarah was escorted away from my workplace, a mix of humiliation and anger surged through me. It wasn't just our personal lives that had been thrown into chaos. Now, my professional world had been invaded by the drama. Just leave me alone, I found myself saying more firmly than I intended. The finality in my voice seemed to echo long after she had gone, marking a boundary I was unwilling to let her cross again. In the days that followed, I sought legal counsel to understand my options. Annulment or divorce. The words felt heavy, final, yet necessary. The lawyer laid out the steps, the paperwork, the proceedings. A path through the legal system that mirrored the emotional maze I was navigating. Each decision, each signature, was a step away from the life I thought I'd have. Meanwhile, the whispers of our broken marriage spread through our social circles like wildfire. Friends, acquaintances, even people I barely knew, seemed to have an opinion on Sarah's affair. It isolated her, the guilt of her actions casting a long shadow that she struggled to escape from. Yet, even in her social exile, Sarah tried to find a way back, her attempts at redemption reaching me through the grapevine of mutual friends and unsolicited updates. It was during this time that I began attending therapy. Sitting across from a stranger, I unpacked the betrayal, the anger, the loss. It was a space to voice the turmoil within, to process the grief of a future that would never be. The sessions became a refuge, a place where healing began, one candid conversation at a time. Sarah, however, didn't give up easily. She reached out through mutual friends, hoping to bridge the chasm her actions had created. But I was firm in my resolve, refusing any form of contact. It was a necessary boundary, one that I needed to maintain to protect the fragile peace I was beginning to find. The therapy sessions taught me that moving on wasn't just about distancing myself from Sarah but also about rebuilding myself from the inside out. As days turned into weeks, I clung to this new routine, finding solace in the gradual process of healing. The legal proceedings, the therapy, the steadfast avoidance of Sarah and her attempts at reconciliation, all were steps on a path leading me away from the past, toward a future uncertain but mine to shape. The session with my therapist started like any other, but today, she pushed me into uncharted waters. It's time to confront your feelings about the affair and its impact, she said firmly, her voice a mix of compassion and resolve. I had skirted around the edges of my pain, anger, and betrayal in our previous sessions, but she was right. Avoiding these emotions had only allowed them to fester. So, with a deep breath, I dove into the heartache, articulating the sense of loss, the erosion of trust, and the shadow the affair had cast over my life. It was both liberating and excruciating, a necessary step towards healing. Meanwhile, Sarah embarked on a path of redemption, volunteering at community services. I heard about her efforts through the grapevine, a part of me acknowledging the sincerity in her attempts to make amends, even if it was too late for us. Her actions, however genuine, couldn't undo the past, but I hoped they brought her some peace. The rumor mill churned once more with news that Alex, the other man in the affair, had severed ties with Sarah shortly after our wedding fiasco. The news brought no satisfaction, only a reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the pain they can inflict. Work became my sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in tasks and projects, distancing myself from the emotional turmoil. My dedication didn't go unnoticed. leading to a promotion that served as a bittersweet milestone. It was a success I had envisioned sharing with Sarah once, now a solitary achievement. Then, Sarah took her apologies public, posting a lengthy message on social media. She acknowledged her mistakes, expressed regret, and shared her journey towards betterment. The post went viral, drawing mixed reactions. Seeing her words laid bare for the world, I felt a complex web of emotions: surprise, a flicker of empathy, but mostly, detachment. Her public declaration marked another step in our separate journeys, hers towards redemption, mine towards closure. The promotion at work was a tangible sign of progress, a beacon of hope in a period marked by personal upheaval. It reminded me that life goes on, that growth and success are possible even in the wake of deep personal loss. As I accepted the congratulations from my colleagues, I realized I was starting to look forward to the future again, one step at a time, building a new life on my own terms. The constant barrage of Sarah's attempts to reconcile had finally begun to wane. Her messages, once frequent and desperate, now arrived less often, though each was heavy with remorse. It was through the grapevine of mutual friends that I learned Sarah had started attending therapy, a journey to confront and work through her own issues. It was a relief, in a way, to know she was seeking help, yet it did little to mend the fissures her actions had caused in my own life. In the midst of navigating my new normal, I ventured back into the social scene, testing the waters of dating. It was awkward, a series of encounters that were more about finding myself again than finding someone new. Each date was a step away from the past, an attempt to rebuild my confidence and envision a future that wasn't overshadowed by betrayal. Then, out of the blue, Sarah reached out with a request that stopped me in my tracks. She wanted to meet, one last time, to offer a formal apology. My initial instinct was to refuse, to avoid reopening wounds that were only just beginning to heal. But curiosity, and perhaps a need for closure, nudged me to accept. I wondered if this meeting could tie up the loose ends, allow us to part ways with some semblance of peace. We chose a neutral place, a quiet coffee shop where our past wouldn't overshadow the conversation. Seeing Sarah again was like stepping back in time, yet the pain that once clouded my vision had dulled. She seemed different, more grounded, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of genuine self-reflection. Sarah's apology was profound, laden with an acceptance of the hurt she had caused. She took full responsibility for her actions, not once attempting to shift the blame or make excuses. It was a stark contrast to the woman who had stood in the eye of the storm months ago. She talked about her therapy, the hard truths she had faced about herself, and her commitment to being better, not for me, but for herself. Listening to her, I realized this was the closure we both needed. It didn't erase the past, nor did it rekindle any lost feelings, but it offered a bridge to move forward, separately yet respectfully. As we parted ways, a weight lifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but an understanding, a mutual acknowledgement of our shared history and the individual paths we were now on. As Sarah's apology lingered in the air between us, I found myself at a crossroads of emotion. There was a part of me that wanted to grasp at the remnants of what we had, to believe that her profound regret could mend the shattered pieces of our life together. But reality was a harsh master. The damage inflicted was too deep, the foundation of trust eroded beyond repair. I appreciate your apology, Sarah, I said, the words heavy with the finality of our chapter. But some things can't be undone. We need to move forward, apart. The conversation that followed was pragmatic, a stark contrast to the emotionally charged exchanges that had defined the recent months. We talked logistics, the cold, hard details of entangling a life built together. It was decided. An amicable divorce was the clearest path through the wreckage. This wasn't about assigning blame anymore. It was about finding a way to heal, to rebuild from the ashes of our past. Starting the legal proceedings felt like closing the door on a chapter of my life that had once held so much promise. The process was methodical, each step a move towards finality. Our home, once a sanctuary of our love and dreams, became just another asset to be liquidated. Selling it was bittersweet, the closing of one door and the reluctant opening of another. We split the proceeds, a fair end to a partnership that had veered so far off course. The day the divorce was finalized passed without fanfare, a quiet end to a union that had started with such hope. There were no winners here, just two people walking away from the ruins of their shared dreams, each carrying their own scars and lessons. In the aftermath, I found myself at a loss. Who was I, without Sarah, without the identity of us? The answer came in the form of a journey, a solo trip abroad that I had always talked about but never taken. It was time to find myself again, to explore the world and my place within it, unencumbered by the shadow of my failed marriage. Traveling alone, I encountered landscapes and cultures that challenged and inspired me. Each new experience was a step away from the pain, a step towards healing. I met people from all walks of life, each with their own stories of loss and rebirth, and in their resilience, I found strength. This journey, intended as an escape, became a pilgrimage of self-discovery, a way to come to terms with my past and look forward to my future with a renewed sense of purpose and hope. Upon my return from a soul-searching journey abroad, the world seemed to spin a bit differently beneath my feet. The clarity and peace I found while traversing foreign landscapes gave me a fresh perspective on life, a much-needed reset after the turmoil of the past months. My social circle, once fragmented by the news of my failing marriage, gradually began to show signs of rebuilding. Friends, both old and new, reached out, their support a testament to the resilience of genuine connections. Sarah, once the center of my universe, now became a figure I would occasionally encounter in the periphery of my social outings. Our interactions, marked by polite nods or brief exchanges, were devoid of the intimacy and warmth that once defined us. It was clear we had both embarked on our separate paths to healing and self-discovery. In the midst of rekindling friendships, I discovered a new hobby that captured my imagination and energy. It was an activity I had always been curious about but never pursued, thinking it too late or irrelevant to start. This newfound passion not only filled my days with joy but also reminded me of the endless possibilities life holds when one is open to change. Then, one day, through the grapevine that seemed to keep the remnants of our shared life connected, news of Sarah's engagement reached me. The sting of the revelation was surprisingly dull, a testament to the distance I had traveled emotionally. It was clear. She was moving on, building a life with someone new, just as I was rediscovering what made me happy, what made me whole. The finalization of our divorce came quietly, a simple end to a chapter that had consumed so much of our lives. Signing those papers was not just a legal formality but a symbolic gesture, closing the door on a painful past and stepping into a future ripe with potential. The journey I embarked upon post-divorce, filled with self-discovery, healing, and new beginnings, had led me to this moment of true independence and readiness to embrace whatever lay ahead. As I set the final document aside, the weight of the past years seemed to lift, leaving a space for new stories to be written. The chapter involving Sarah was now closed, not with bitterness or regret, but with a silent acknowledgement of our growth apart. Ready for new adventures, new connections, and a life defined on my terms, I stepped forward into a world brimming with possibility, the echoes of what was fading into a memory, a lesson learned on the winding road